Doctors who work with people in their 60s and 70s often hear the same thing. Not loudly, not dramatically, but almost in passing. "I'm not sleeping the way I used to." They say it while sitting at the kitchen table early in the morning, coffee already poured, the house still dark. Sometimes the television is still off. Sometimes it's on low, just for company. They didn't stay up late. They didn't do anything unusual. They just woke up, again, around 2 or 3 in the morning. Once awake, they lay there quietly, careful not to disturb the house. They listen to the clock. They listen to their own breathing. Some turn onto their side and stare at the faint outline of the ceiling. Others slip out of bed and sit in a chair, telling themselves they're just resting. They think about whether they should get up, or whether lying still might somehow invite sleep back. What troubles them most isn't the tiredness. It's the thought that slips in during those quiet hours. The one that feels heavier because it arrives uninvited. Is this just getting older? Or is something wrong? They don't always say that part out loud, but doctors hear it in the pauses, and they answer carefully. For most people, this isn't illness. It isn't decline. It's a change, one almost everyone in their 60s and 70s experiences, even if no one warned them it was coming. Part 1. When sleep trouble turns into quiet fear. In the beginning, sleep problems usually have a clear cause. Pain that lingers longer than it used to. Stress that doesn't fully turn off. A routine that quietly shifted. But doctors notice that over time, something else takes over. People begin watching themselves sleep. They check the clock at 2:14 a.m., then again at 3:02. They calculate how they'll feel tomorrow if this continues. Sleep stops being something that happens naturally and becomes something to manage. In the 60s and 70s, this worry carries a different weight. People aren't just thinking about being tired tomorrow. They're thinking further ahead. They wonder if poor sleep is a sign they're losing sharpness. If memory will be next. If independence could quietly slip away. Some worry they'll become less themselves. Others fear becoming a burden long before they're ready to admit it. Doctors say these thoughts are incredibly common and rarely spoken. Not because people are dramatic, but because they're careful. They've spent decades being capable, reliable, strong, and now, lying awake in the dark, that confidence feels thinner than it used to. The problem is, this kind of vigilance keeps the brain alert, even when the body is ready to rest. Part 2. How aging quietly changes the sleep clock. Medical research shows that the brain's internal clock changes with age. It doesn't stop working, it doesn't break, it becomes less precise. Doctors see this clearly in older adults. Many feel sleepy earlier in the evening, even if they don't plan to. Many wake earlier in the morning, often before sunrise. This isn't because they're failing at sleep. It's because the system that once handled sleep automatically now needs guidance. The mistake many people make is assuming something is wrong when something has simply shifted. Part 3. The evening scene. Doctors know well. Sleep specialists often ask a simple question. What does your evening usually look like? The answer, for people in their 60s and 70s, is remarkably similar. Dinner finishes earlier than it once did. The dishes are put away. The house grows quiet. The television stays on. Not always because anyone is watching, but because silence feels heavier at night than it used to. Some people sit in the same chair they've sat in for years. Some stretch out on the couch. Some stay awake just long enough to make sure the doors are locked. Eyes close for a moment, then another. Doctors explain that these brief evening dozes matter more than people realize, because in those moments, before anyone has officially gone to bed, the body has already begun its sleep cycle. Often, there's a partner nearby, already asleep, or sleeping lightly. So movement is careful. Lights stay dim. People hesitate to get up, worried about disturbing someone else. By the time they finally go to bed, sleep has already started once. So when waking comes at 2 or 3 in the morning, it feels wrong, lonely, unsettling. But medically, it often makes sense. What turns that early waking into a problem isn't the waking itself. It's the worry that follows, the feeling that something has gone off course. Part 4. Why trying harder no longer works. Many people respond by doing more. More walking, more chores, more effort. Doctors often explain that this approach worked better decades ago. With age, the brain doesn't register physical fatigue as deeply. So even after a full day, the body may feel tired, while the mind remains alert. That's why many sleep specialists now encourage moderation rather than exhaustion. Sleep doesn't respond to force, it responds to rhythm. Part 5. Why sleep matters more, now, not less. Doctors emphasize something many people don't expect. Sleep becomes more important with age, not less. During deep sleep, the body clears inflammation and repairs tissue. The brain removes waste that builds up during waking hours. This process supports clarity, balance, and resilience. That's why disrupted sleep feels more concerning in the 60s and 70s. Doctors don't frame sleep as comfort. They frame it as upkeep. Part 6. The most common unintentional habit. One pattern doctors see again and again is gradual bedtime drift. People don't choose to go to bed earlier. It just happens. Evenings shorten. Energy dips sooner. Stimulation fades. Over time, bedtime creeps forward. Doctors explain that when sleep begins too early, waking too early becomes almost inevitable. What feels like insomnia is often a mismatch between timing and expectation. Part 7. I slept, but I don't feel rested. Many people in their 60s and 70s say this with real frustration. They didn't stay awake all night. They weren't tossing and turning endlessly. And yet, morning arrives with disappointment. They open their eyes and think, that's it? That was sleep. Doctors hear this often. Sleep specialists explain that sleep naturally becomes lighter with age. There's less deep sleep, more brief awakenings. But emotionally, this can feel unsettling. People remember falling asleep instantly, sleeping through anything, waking up feeling clear and steady. Now, even after several hours, sleep feels fragile, almost incomplete. Some begin blaming themselves. Maybe they did something wrong. Maybe they should try harder. Maybe their body just doesn't work the way it used to. Doctors gently remind patients that lighter sleep isn't broken sleep. It's aging sleep. And when expectations are shaped by memories from decades earlier, the gap between expectation and reality can feel like failure, even when it isn't. Sometimes the body is functioning better than the mind believes. Part 8. When nighttime waking becomes a loop. Doctors don't see nighttime waking itself as the main problem. They focus on what happens next, checking the clock, running tomorrow through the mind, wondering what this means. That mental activity fully wakes the brain. Over time, the brain learns this pattern. Breaking the cycle often means changing the response, not eliminating waking altogether. Part 9. What doctors say actually helps. Rather than relying only on medication, many sleep specialists recommend a consistent wake-up time, gentle evening movement instead of early withdrawal, daylight exposure, reduced stimulation late at night, calm routines that signal safety. These steps help replace functions the aging brain no longer regulates automatically. Doctors don't see aging sleep as broken. They see it as something that needs support. Sleep in your 60s and 70s isn't something to fight. It's something to adapt to. And when people stop treating wakefulness as a sign of danger, sleep often returns quietly, gradually, and on its own terms.